This is the Authority Company podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing our future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and summer travel season is officially here, and we're all well aware of the Airbnbs and Verbos of this world. But are you familiar with the 100 Collection? A curated portfolio of invitation-only, professionally managed vacation rentals. It's all the brainchild of hospitality and travel vet Travis Wilburn. So we're going to get into the current state of travel here in the United States, what separates his company from other Airbnb alternatives, and why he believes the 100 Collection will become the Michelin guide of the luxury short-term rental space. Travis Wilburn, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, and because I'm equally doing awesome as well, Travis. You're very welcome, and thank you. So, let's start just talking about like the world of tourism, and it's one of those things where people love to travel, but it's a real pain in the ass. Like, it's funny, like it's almost like a bad relationship, Travis, where people know how hard it's going to be, yet they put themselves through it and use their hard-earned money. And you've obviously made a business out of it, and you've worked in hospitality for years. But what is it about our relationship with travel and why we love to do it, despite of all the things that could suck the enjoyment away from it?
I think now more than ever, we want to get out of the places in which we live because we spend more time there, working from home on a regular basis. And so we're seeing people travel within the US and outside of the US. So it greater clips by all means, and within the last 5 years more than ever for sure. But it's been fun because it's the vacation rental space, has absolutely exploded. And so there's been a lot of conversations around those experiences, by all means.
Yeah, and you've been doing this for almost a couple decades, and it's funny that I have a friend of mine who's in hospitality as well, Rob Delabovi, and I had met him years ago, and we had lunch, and I was talking about, he's basically a travel consultant. He's like a VIP concierge for celebrities and stuff like that. But he also helps hotels. Startup hotels. And I remember he was telling me about a meeting he had with like this gazillionaire who's opening up this new hotel, and he thought it was going to be like this really kind of like X and O's, like to spreadsheets and shit like that. And the guy says to him, he goes, "What's going to be my Instagram moment?" And Rob was like, "What?" He goes like, "What is the one spot in my hotel that people are going to want to take pictures in front of?" And Rob has been doing hospitality and hotels for his entire life, and in the last 15-20 years, he's seen this shift where obviously you've got to create a great product, but the importance of Instagrammability and obviously with the 100 Collection, that's kind of an important thing too. Like if you go to your website, it's all beautiful places. So tell us about this sort of I guess how social media has fueled this incredible resurgence in travel over the past couple decades.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you hit the nail on the head, right? So, I mean, the way that we consume media now has completely shifted. And it's, we used to read, we then started looking at photos, and now we look at videos. And, Instagram's like this great example. It's like, even themselves, it's like, hey, we no longer look at photos. We don't want to see that. We want to see videos now. So, how great of a video can you create for that content? Um, and people love living vicariously through others. And so, hence the influencers, which I think is absolutely kind of hilarious. Cause like when I go back to the vacation rental space, I think about influencers almost like 10 years ago, and how, Airbnb, which is like the most common name in the vacation rental space, right? It's definitely Kleenex. However, 10 years ago, they couldn't get, you know, anybody to pay over $500 a night for the most part for a property. And so they actually started by using Beyonce for the Super Bowl, which she was playing in I think it was San Francisco, and she stayed in a $10,000 a night Airbnb. And it was a giant PR stunt used by Airbnb to change their brand and start gaining momentum. And since then, I mean, it's, we all know about the Kardashians and the brands that they built from there. But Instagram has been this incredible platform where, you can go viral like this. And it's all about the content creation, right? And it's not about the money that you spend, but the time and effort that you put behind a video. So it's shifted a lot. But it's also driven, to your point, with a hundred collection, we've been building a brand of curated vacation homes, no different than the Michelin star has, a great restaurants. And the way I always put it, I ask people all the time, um, have you ever eaten a Michelin star restaurant? And, often the answer is yes. And I'm like, well, great. What's the name of the restaurant? And then they pause and they have to wait and they're like, I can't remember it, but they remember the Michelin star and it was a great local restaurant in whatever destination. And, one of the things people don't realize is, within our group, in our world, vacation rentals is one of the oldest forms of hospitality. It's been around essentially since Jamestown. That might be a little stretch, but essentially, and it's still in its infancy, which is the crazy part to me. It's still just gaining more momentum, and a lot of that had to do with some of the money and the funding, and then the Airbnb and the marketing, and now it's kind of one of the greatest things, and Instagram and the Instagrammable moments on Airbnb are such a key point for sure.
And also there is a dark side to all this you're breaking down with the celebrityness and Instagram is over tourism, which was I don't think was a word until like 2 years ago, but over tourism where these cities and towns and resorts were overrun by people because of social media. I remember this is years ago when the Kardashians filmed their episode in Iceland. And at the time, Iceland had growing as sort of like this really cool place, especially for Europeans to go to. And then all of a sudden, thanks to the Kardashians, Iceland was just over tourism to the max. Like everyone and their mother wanted to go in those like mud lakes or whatever, and then have like the stars and all the stuff that comes with Iceland. But it is amazing how over tourism has sort of been the dark side of all of this, right, Travis? In terms of the fact that the idea of going to these places and having a relaxing vacation. It's not so relaxing, and hence a place like the 100 Collection helps you because you take a break from being around all the crowds and
Yeah.
stuff like.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the over tourism, I think one of the things, that we saw huge, massive demand in 21, 22, and it started weighing drastically in 23. And ironically, in 23, we saw the shift from vacation rentals and everybody started going back to international. I mean, the cruise lines, I can't remember the exact number, but they had a record high in regards to future reservations. And then international travel, the big body planes, even like they started pulling big body planes from Hawaii and started moving them over to Europe because we hadn't been there for a while. And so, but all of that has actually thankfully started to pull back, and we're starting to see some things normalized by all means within that space. And so back to 2019 a little bit.
Yeah, and speaking of which, you had Airbnb come out recently saying how demand has slowed down, and Q2 wasn't that great. And so, I always like to say, Travis, is one thing we are, as I think mostly as Americans, we are amazing at overcorrecting. Like when something happens, we'll overcorrect. So, like, remember after the pandemic, everyone's like, "I gotta travel. I mean, I gotta get out of the house." So everyone and their mother went traveling, and now all of a sudden, everyone's dialing it back, whether it's for economic restraints or just the fact that, like, man, right now I just don't feel like traveling. Um, Tell me about this sort of slowdown that we're seeing. We talked about the hype cycle that we had post pandemic, but is it now more of a is it just Travis, like kind of leveling it out? Is that where we're at? Like in terms of like now is where the normal baseline, or is this kind of just the normal peaks and valleys of travel?
I think it's you take out of travel for a second and then you go to kind of your point, like where Americans, we always go extreme one way or another, right? Alcohol during COVID, absolute extreme. Now the fastest growing segment of the alcohol industry, the non-alcohol industry, right? So it's like we always pull back and shift into these different directions. It's kind of amazing because I see we have access to all sorts of different data through, out the country and in the globe. And, when we're looking at the US, it's like essentially what I can tell you is by all means, there is definitely an oversupply within the vacation rental space, but generally speaking, that's related to the Airbnb where there is no filter, there is no curation, there's no protection. You can just add your property at whenever you want to if you have some photos, and that's created oversupply and demand has diminished. The cool thing about our world in my space where we work with a lot of these professionalized vacation rental groups, which let me just pause on that for a moment. What I mean professionalized, these are groups that have like hospitality standards, safety standards, linens, just like you would find at the Ritz-Carlton, concierge staff. They know what they're doing. This isn't their first rodeo. The average age of the company that we work with is 25 years old.
Wow.
That also being said, they also have a giant book of business and they have their own demand already. So it's just it's kind of weird because it's when you're getting the data, and I'm looking at the data from our groups, I'm like, okay, hey, demand is actually really strong. And it's, for particular types of inventory. And then, hey, if I'm looking at like what's called OTAs or like Airbnb or Verbo, like it's softer, but it's because there's a lot of the times it's the oversupply.
So your value proposition is because you kind of mentioned the Beyonce thing where she rented a place for $10,000 a day, whatever the hell it was. Um, your value proposition is like, yes, these Airbnbs and Verbos can do more exclusive, more luxurious spots, but you have this sort of, I guess, gatekeeper. I guess, for lack of a better word, where you are making sure it's the best of the best that you're offering to potential consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so yeah, a couple different things we can roll out here. So, about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, my mother took our family on our first family vacation, God knows a decade. And we wanted to go to Vancouver, Canada, and she showed me all these different rentals that she found on a site, and I chose it. I was like, oh wow, this looks amazing. Photos are incredible. Let's go stay there. I was the first one to arrive, and I was like, oh God, this is nothing like the photo showed, but this is our family vacation. I'm not going to say a single thing, not going to complain. At the very end of that, um, my mother pulled the sheets off the bed because that was the rules, the 20-page list of rules that you have to do. And it looked like three people had been murdered in the bed. And that's when she lost it. And I was like, there's just got to be a better way. And, you read about this on a regular basis now at this point. There's a giant lack of trust because of that platform or some of the platforms. There's just no filtering. And I know that that's just not fair. You were talking about travelers at the beginning of the show, and it's like the average American has 2 weeks of vacation. It's like you need to be able to trust when you stay. And that's one of our value propositions is just making sure that these properties are the creme de la creme and that they best represent the destination. And Cody, Wyoming looks very different than Jackson Hole. And Cape Cod will look very different than 30A. But the other huge value proposition is think of it as, well, Joe, what's your favorite airline? Put Joe
Uh,
on the spot.
I mean, I was originally from New Jersey, so United is kind of the go-to. So yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know much about United, but I can speak about Delta all day long because
Okay.
Delta, they can land a plane upside down, which and everybody lives, which is incredible. But I know about the rewards and what have you. But most people who are loyal to United, they're going to book directly through United, right?
Mhm.
Would you argue? And I'm going to book directly through Delta because I'm going to get a better class of ticket. I'm going to get treated better experience, what have you. Um, The airlines, just like United, they use things like Kayak, Priceline, Orbis, what have you, to fill up the back seats of the plane in the middle of the row, right? You don't find first class plane tickets on Kayak. Well, guess what? You generally don't find the creme de la creme of properties on some of these bigger platforms because there's not a they the owners themselves want to make sure that the properties are protected. And so these vacation rental managers generally don't put their inventory up there. And so that's why we have it over here on our platform. But most importantly, one of the things that people don't realize is you often pay about 15% more for the exact same product on an OTA as you would if you just simply Googled it and found it direct. But if you're spending a certain value, dollar amount, a lot of people don't have trust in booking direct because they don't know what that dollar is. And so every one of the properties on our platform, you're going to send you directly into the platform to book it directly. So you're often saving, $100 to sometimes $500 per night. And you can actually just pick up the phone and talk to the person directly and ask questions about the property to make sure that it meets the qualifications that you need for your family or for your set.
Wow. Just scrolling through your website and look at some of your places that you have available. I mean, epic is a good word, but like these houses are ginormous. Like, Airbnb will say something like sleeps, 3, sleeps 5. You have houses like sleeps 32. I mean, these are gigantic houses. Who are the
Yeah.
people that are looking for this kind of stuff?
Oh my goodness.
Tell me about your audience, because it's like, again, the Airbnb example is like it's a family going and they want to make sure they could sleep 4 comfortably. And you have these ginormous houses. Like, who are these people, to borrow a question from Jerry Seinfeld?
Every market is very different. I mean, we're in over 80 different destinations, right? And so I can tell you, there are a couple, I look at demographics all the time, and it's a predominantly female audience paying attention to this, making decisions. They, and most importantly, when they are making decisions, the other thing I always talk about, it's like, if you offered them the Ritz-Carlton or the Fairfield Inn, both at $300 a night, they're going to choose the Ritz-Carlton, right?
Right.
And if you say 350 and 300, they're probably still going to go the Ritz-Carlton. At some point, price might break them, but they don't have the information to book a vacation rental. They have to literally look at photos and they have to look at reviews. And oftentimes, like, these reviews are not very honest. There's a reward system, if you will, for good reviews. And so it's like, they need some type of trust. But we have properties that sleep 2 people to 30 people, and it just family reunions to wedding parties to bachelorette parties to just a group of college friends that want to get back together. I mean, you think of it, and it's the reason why they're staying. And so, I mean, um, yeah, there's some significant properties. I get a little, yeah. I mean, there's some down in 30A that, or Jackson Hole, or just, I mean, even right by you over there at the Isle of Palms or Folly Beach, where I'm like, yeah, I don't ever want to leave. And that's I mean, that's the main point. It's like, I think people, at least for me, it's like, I always want to go stay somewhere or stay in something and have like that aha moment, or that like, God, I don't ever want to go. And that's what we're trying to create, where it's just like, you, the vacation, you don't want it to ever end. And that's unfortunate, because there's oftentimes that people check into properties on, from platforms, are like, I literally want to leave right this minute.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I asked about the size houses is because I always go down to the grassroots level of like, who decided to build such a giant house? I mean, do they have like 12 children? Like, it's amazing stuff. And like you said, I was obviously, leaning on the large side. You do have smaller homes, but to me, I was just fascinated to see about the size of these homes, because you don't generally see those kind of homes on a Verbo or an Airbnb, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
So it's good to know. So you're also like, it's almost like a great like family reunion spot. Like, if you want to have like an entire family get together in one place where they don't have to be spread out through a hotel, they could all be in this one big giant house.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens all the time in a lot of these markets too, where the wedding parties come and stay. And I mean, even here in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is number 2 wedding market in the Southeast, only to Charleston being the number 1. That's exactly what it is. It's, we've got a new property that's about to come on in just a couple weeks, and it sleeps 42 people, and it's nothing but wedding parties. And it's like they haven't seen each other, or family reunions, or whatever it might be. But it's actually a good portion of those groups are families, generally speaking. I don't have 26 college friends that I want to hang out with.
Oh yeah, no, certainly not. And it's funny too, because Airbnb is pushing like the big experiences is their big thing that they do, and you can even sort like on the app in terms of experiences. But in and of itself, all of the or majority of these homes that you have on the 100 collection drafts, they all are an experience in themselves, just because of the way they look and they present themselves, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And not only are they experienced, but then the local manager often has great experiences behind that. They're offering private chefs, massages, tours, boat rentals, bike rentals, or what have you, or they might be directly the source to be able to provide that or point you in the direction of where that can be offered without having to pay once again like those extra fees. Where generally speaking, when you're booking on those platforms, you're paying 15%, 20% more for the exact same experience if you just did a little bit of research on your own.
All right, so that's from the renter side, and I want to. I'm just curious in terms of the people that are renting it out, and like you said, you vet them. You're working with companies that have been doing this for a long time. Um, Out of curiosity, because obviously, if you own one of these homes in the 100 collection, you're doing pretty well for yourselves. What is the I guess because my thing is like I don't know if and again this is probably like there's two people in the world like people who would rent out at Airbnb and people that don't. I'm in that camp of don't. And if I had a home like this, I don't want strangers in it. And I know they're vetted and they're obviously spending a lot of money. But who are the folks that work with you to rent through their homes? Like, do they ever say like why they decide to this? And clearly there is a money aspect to it, but I don't think a lot of these people are are scraping pennies together. So tell me about it from that side. Like what is the sort of the driver for them to get involved with the 100 collection?
I think it's numerous different reasons. And things slash no, but oftentimes it's just like me. It's like I think about Charleston all the time. I want to live in Charleston. But I can't. I got offices here, and I would love nothing more than a second home right there on Sullivan Island or Isle of Palms. And I would only be able to use it for 3 weeks to 6 weeks out of the year, and then the other 40 to 44 weeks is going to sit empty. Like that's often generally the mentality. And so why not monetize it or have other people be able to, appreciate it? An empty house doesn't benefit anybody, generally speaking. And so, that's often the mentality. It's just people really want to be able to experience other places and then they'll let other people do it. I mean, the sharing economy, thanks to companies just like Airbnb, like it's just only grown. And so I think people have gotten a little bit more used to sharing different assets and realizing that they're better utilized used. Um, there are definitely investors in there. I think we've seen that wane drastically over the last couple of years. The it just it doesn't make sense to be buying a $5 million 5 bedroom home right now. You're not going to have ROI on that, and so I think that's going to yet to be determined how that will shake out in the future. We did see that because there was so much money that poured into the tourism and the over tourism and the demand, but as we all know, everything the pendulum always swings.
And you mentioned Charleston earlier, where I live, and I remember a couple years ago, one of the beach destinations. I think you might have mentioned is Folly Beach, and they were putting a moratorium on how many houses can be up for rent with Airbnbs, and you're seeing this in a lot of cities because they feel like I guess they're getting unsavory people in their communities that are coming in for a
Mhm.
couple nights, and so how does regulation get mix in with the 100 collection? Do you ever run into that? Because some of these cities that you are in have that issue of like trying to dampen down the number of people that are Airbnb it. So how is that an issue with you guys so far?
It's such a great question, and I love that question because 55% of the time that comes up in conversations with the local management companies that we work with. And a lot of the reason why we've seen the regulation, which actually was pre-COVID, was due to the irresponsibility of platforms, to be just quite frank. You could be in a 57th floor of a New York skyscraper managing properties down in New Orleans as an investor or as a host or whatever. You literally didn't care about your neighbors. That stinks. And so one of the things that we do as a group before I ever even look at your properties, I look at your local management team. I look at who you are. And we are very diehard on this, but we want to make sure that you have the finger on the pulse of the community and how do you produce and how do you add value to that community? What else are you doing? Then we actually look at your portfolio of properties. But every one of our management companies, Alex Stone and his family there at the Isle of Palms, They've been known figures, very involved, or Stay Duvet down there in Charleston, or Dunes Realty over on Folly Beach. All of them are actually legacy companies that are, um, if you're from that area, you know exactly how they're involved because you're going to see them participating in the community first and foremost. And I think that helps because, um, it's there are like I'll be the first person. There needs to be regulations on certain things, by all means. And so I think that actually helps our industry. But sometimes there's been some overreach in certain markets, that have actually ended up backfiring. So finding a balance, by all means, but there's no one size fits all, policy that's could get enacted that will benefit every community.
No doubt. And if you don't mind, Trav, let me double devil's advocate here a little bit because
Mhm.
you mentioned people that are managing these locations all across the country and have been doing it for years. Like you've said it. Why do they need the 100 collection? Like, can't they just do what they're already doing and fill up their timetables because they're very successful? They've been doing it for a long time. What kind of secret sauce? And I always hate to use these kind of like businessy
Yeah,
uh,
love it.
ways to connect. Like, what is the secret sauce that attracts you to these management companies that have been doing it way before you guys came around?
Well, so that's uh, great question. And so when I ask people who represents the Ritz-Carlton in the vacation rental space right now, for the lack of a better term,
I don't know. Ritz
I get
Carlton?
blank stares. Yeah. And have you ever had a bad experience at the Ritz-Carlton?
No.
No. But there's nobody in the vacation rental space that actually does it, right? And that's one of the biggest problems. But one of the things that we think is really, really important is the local brand. However, there's a lot of money being spent right now to have these local brands disappear. The large groups that have multi-billion dollars, they do not want to see the local brand because that's called slippage. And then people will leave their website to go book on the local website. And I cry foul. So what we do is we actually we find the best local brand in every market, and then we go point them out so that you can go decide if you want to stay with them and spend your money directly with them with a much, much higher level of trust, and hopefully satisfaction that this will be 100% the experience that you're looking for.
Cool. All right, great. Well, good answer. I know it's kind of a tough to answer to sort of like defend your existence, but I was always curious because, like you said, these people are and you mentioned you use the phrase they're not their first rodeo. Like they know what they're doing. So to see how you fit in that world, that makes a lot of sense. And out of curiosity, does the model work from the consumer's point of view? Does it work the same as Airbnb? Can you kind of like let's play act how this would work if someone
Yeah,
were
for
like
sure.
I want to go visit the Charleston, South Carolina, and they go to your website, which makes it very easy. Like you can actually pick and choose what city and market you choose to visit. Walk me through that process.
It is actually no different than you using the Michelin guide to go find a great restaurant in Miami. It's actually it's free for the consumer. And in the future, there'll be rewards with the loyalty program that's no different than Delta Airlines rewarding you for using Delta or United, which I wish I knew their program. I don't, but or Marriott rewards. The consumer definitely wants to be rewarded for loyalty, and we definitely want to know who the best customers are and how to be able to always better serve them, right? But it's free. It is absolutely entirely free. So when you do not, as a consumer, spend money with the 100 collection. You go and you find that group on the 100 collection website. It'll then take you over to the local partner's website and you book it directly with them and sign an agreement with them and don't pay a single penny extra. And
Wow.
so that is the first time that's ever been done.
Do you mind my asking? So, how do you make money? Because I think you'd like to be profitable. Tell me, can you explain that some of that dynamic?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of opportunities kind of on the back end with licensing and vetting, but most importantly, just creating buying opportunities, as well. And so, when you have, large amounts of different data, you're able to monetize that in numerous different ways. And so I just personally believe that, I don't want to pay 15% more for something, that irritates me, especially when I learn that later on down the road for a worse experience. So we're dead set against it. And so when I first started, Joe, like everybody, including the guy that actually helped start Roomkey, which a lot of people don't even know what Roomkey is, but what was it, 15 years ago, airlines and hotels were all freaking out because they were losing their market share to online travel agencies, right? And so Roomkey, which was 6 large hotel groups, got together and said, "Hey, if you keep overcharging us, we're going to stop giving you supply and we're just going to start putting it over here on our platform." Well, anyways, the guy that helped create that platform, not the guy that did Roomkey, but the technology behind it, said, "Dude, there's no way you're like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Everybody's got to take that financial transaction." Like, that is one thing that we will never do. And it's just like dead set against it. We're going to be free to the consumer. So we'll reward the consumer. We'll introduce the consumer to other opportunities, and but the consumer is never going to pay extra using our platform.
And so we've talked about Charleston a lot, but I want to close out by talking about Charlottesville. And some people call you like the mayor of Charlottesville because how connected you are with that community. And you've said it, like you could never see yourself leaving that city. What is it about it that keeps you there, that drives
Oh,
your love for it, for everything that you do there? Like, tell me about it.
so A the number one, first most important thing to know is that I love kite surfing. So I actually go to Charleston all the time. I'll go down to Station 24, 28 down there on Sullivan's Island to go kite surfing. But if I lived there, would become a failure in a heartbeat because I would be out on the water all the time. Charlottesville is landlocked, thankfully, but it's I always kind of jokingly say it's a miniature Silicon Valley of the East. We've got this beautiful, like Boulder, Colorado, surrounded by Napa Valley. There's over 50 vineyards within this marketplace.
Wow.
The food is absolutely incredible. The Rolling Stones, they go to London, Paris, New York, and Charlottesville. Like, what? But like the office a couple doors down, a guy named Ted Weschler. He's the guy that's gonna one of the guys that's taking over for another dude called Warren Buffett. The guy over here, his office over there is Corn Capshaw, which is voted by Billboard one of the most powerful people in American music, but nobody knows his name because he doesn't want you to know his name, which is kind of a common theme of the people here in town. They just don't really care if you know who they are or not. And so there's just kind of this like it's a fun little town of like a lot happening. And then my new favorite thing, I accidentally fell into polo, and we have this beautiful vineyard called King Family Vineyards with polo fields. So it's like the most picturesque place in the world. And now, I grew up riding horses back in the day and recently discovered a new adrenaline sport where you can go chase a ball down a field with a horse at a full gallop. And I'm just like, it's one of the most publicly attended polo events in the country. So it's just, there's so much to love. I mean, food, wine, theater, music, and just outdoor entertainment. So,
Wow. You should be in the hospitality industry, Travis. You speak really well.
yeah.
Lastly, let's talk about the future of the 100 collection. We've already talked about the highs and lows of travel, and it's sometimes hard to predict. Like no one probably would have thought like once the pandemic was over, people would want to travel because there was that scarcity of like, oh my God, can I get COVID and die if I go to Paris? So you saw that, and then you've seen sort of like the ebbs and flows since then. But future of the 100 collection, what do you envision as? Because you seem to be a very future forward individual. What are you hoping to see in the next few years?
Number one, my hope is that just like the Michelin star means something to a restaurant, it will mean something to the consumer. I want them to know, I want the consumer to know that this is a brand that they can trust. I hope it becomes a household name and it leads people directly to the platforms. I hope it helps. I mean, as honest to God, Joe, it's the story of David and Goliath. We bootstrapped it. We started off with just good intentions, talking to local managers and trying to understand what they were dealing with and the problems. And we've grown it from absolutely next to nothing to well over 80 destinations. Hopefully by the end of the year, we're well over 160 destinations. We just moved into Central America and now represent a group called Stay in Tamarindo, where once again, I mean, just I haven't been in years, but the properties there are absolutely phenomenal, and they want me to go to Tamarindo. But I hope people will use our platform to go find new locations that they can go stay and trust and learn meet new people and find the best coffee with the greatest barista at the local coffee shop. And I hope it's a platform that helps bring back local and Main Street, to be perfectly honest. I think, um, people don't come to Charlottesville, so they don't go to the neighborhood bar and grill that we're gonna go find on a 5-lane highway. They're gonna go to Continental Divide and eat the Red Hot Blues, or I'm gonna go to Charleston and, what is it? The Game Changer cocktail at the best barbecue place right there on Sullivan's Island.
Home team
Home
barbecue.
team barbecue. I mean, it's just like and the best wings. Like, but our people are gonna talk about that, right? And, that's what I hope it's a platform that just really brings out the creme de la creme of local experience, and it's a trusted platform for that. And I hope we don't ever erode that trust, simply put.
Awesome. His name is Travis Wilburn. He is the founder of the 100 Collection. Travis, if folks want to find out more information about the 100 Collection, where should they start?
Just go to the 100collection.com, or hopefully Google vacation rental in any destination, and you'll be finding the 100 Collection. But the 100 Collection spelled out, or Stay Charlottesville, or State of A, or Island Realty down there. I mean, you can find it on countless different platforms that'll lead you there.
Awesome. Travis, thanks for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about what we do at Advantage, Forbes Books, and our other amazing imprints, go to theauthoritycompany.com.